I guess I just have a thing for gray hatchbacks at this point. I have my gray Mazda 3, the gray CTSV, and at least temporarily, that thing, which is a 2024 GR Corolla Premium. I got this car through Toyota USA's Vehicle Loaner program, so a huge shout out and thank you to Toyota for not only giving me access to the car, but for enabling me to create videos like this one about this amazing car. I had the GR Corolla for 7 days, and in that time period I drove it for about 200-250 miles. I took it on errands, longer drives, back road runs, pretty much everything that you would do if you own this car as a daily driver, with the exception of performance and competitive driving, because sadly I was not allowed to do that. I know the aesthetics of this car are super polarizing. I've spoken to a lot of people, even in the automotive journalism community, who absolutely hate how this thing looks. I personally really like it, but I also like how just plain Corollas look. I think it's very clearly still a Corolla, but I think they did a good job kind of making it a little bit more aggressive with the slightly different grille, the wider hips, which are a lot more obvious in the back. I just think it's a good looking car. I'm also a huge sucker for well-done branding, and I think Toyota has done a really great job of incorporating the GR brand in a super tasteful way all over the car. The logo only appears once on each side, so on the sides of the car you just have this nice little badge right here. On the front it's on the grille, and then of course on the rear it's with the name badge of the car. Now this thing has a super lightweight aluminum hood. It is kind of tricky to find the latch the first few times you do it, but the thing weighs virtually nothing. Moving on into the engine bay, you have the same super subtle branding, just a very clean GR logo right there on the front of the engine cover. Overall, I think it's a really clean engine bay. If your alternator ever goes out, you will not have to worry because it is right there on the very top of the engine. It just looks like a really thoughtfully designed engine bay with repairability kind of centered around where they placed everything. I also like that there's plenty of room, like unused space in the engine bay. I think as these cars age, it'll definitely open up a lot more to the modification market, and with the engine bay having as much room as it does, I think it'll be so much easier for people to modify and do some really crazy stuff with. Just for the love of God, don't K-swap one of these in 20 years. I also love how this car sounds. It has the perfect exhaust character for a car like this, I think. It's loud enough to where the driver can really enjoy it, but it's not so loud your neighbors hate you when you leave in the morning. I also really like the fact that it's a tri-exit exhaust. I like to think that it's kind of like a calling to the fact that it's a 3-cylinder. The interior of the GR is about what you would expect for a car of this class in this price bracket. It has some really nice options like an Alcantara centered seat, leather trim, a nice embroidered badge on the headrest, and just a couple really nice touch point items. Like the steering wheel, for example, is a little bit padded, which I really like because I tend to grip the steering wheel kind of hard. It's just kind of a driving habit, and it makes it a little bit more comfortable for me to do that. From a usability perspective, I found the number of buttons on the wheel to be kind of overwhelming. It's somewhat distracting to use whenever you're driving, and it can take a while to kind of memorize that button layout so you're not having to look down at the wheel whenever you're driving around. Overall, I just think there's a lot of buttons. I definitely prefer that to, the iPads basically that are in a lot of cars these days. But I just think the sheer volume of them kind of makes it overwhelming. I personally really love how easy it is to turn off and turn on the IMT in this car. I was kind of apprehensive about it before I started driving it because I've driven other cars that have similar systems, and I just found it kind of intrusive, and I really wanted to be able to turn it off. In the GR, it's so seamless, it doesn't interrupt your driving experience at all. If you only want to half heel toe something as you're coming up to a corner, all you do is press that button and it turns on. It's instantaneous. You also have a couple different driving modes that you can change with this little dial right here. It does slightly change your dash, so you have custom, sport, normal, and eco. I've honestly been driving most of the time in sport or normal. Pretty much all the basic driving modes do is alter the throttle mapping. Obviously the eco mode is more fuel economy oriented, normal is best for everyday driving, and then sport mode is going to be a lot more aggressive, making you get a lot more power out of a lot less throttle movement. Another really cool feature that this car has, it basically allows you to set your torque ratios from front and rear dynamically. So this car is all-wheel drive. It has 2 differentials, one in the front, one in the rear, and you're pretty much able to set that via another button. So track, which is this big center press, puts it at a 50-50, so that's an even front and rear. But otherwise, if you rotate it, it carries you between 60 and 40 and 30-70. So basically you have your front bias, your rear bias, and your balance. outside of all the track car doodads like the driving modes and the torque split modes, it's actually very well equipped with a lot of the modern comforts that you would want out of a daily driver. It has CarPlay, it has Android Auto, it has lane assist and adaptive cruise that lets you shift with it activated, blind spot monitoring. It even has heated seats, which, considering it doesn't have power adjustable seats, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that. This car does a lot of things really, really well, but one thing that it does kind of lack in is rear seat room and cargo space. So I'm 5'7" for scale, and you can see how far I have the seat up, and this is about as much legroom as I have. It's comfortable for me, but I would say if you were much taller, it would not be great. The passenger seat is adjusted for my husband, who's about 6 feet tall, and there's not really a lot of room in there. So I would definitely say this car is short king spec. Going around to the trunk, you have really nice branded floor mat. This one is optioned with a cargo net, which is kind of neat. I really like the little pouch that it came in. So if you lift up the cargo mat, you have this organizer, which is made of like the styrofoam material. It, of course, is also branded. And here's where you can access your battery, and this does not come with a spare, but it instead comes with a tire repair kit. Overall, the exterior and interior of the GR Corolla exceeded my expectations. It was super comfortable to drive around in all week. It was small, but still just barely big enough for me to do my basic errands like grocery shopping, and it was more than comfortable to take on longer drives in and out of the city. I do, however, wish that they were available in more colors. The GR is only available in a handful of colors, and I really don't think any of them are all that interesting. For those of you who don't know, I have a thing for teal Toyotas. I would really love to see, either a fun teal color, like I know they offer a great color on the Prius, a really beautiful green tone, just something more interesting. I drove the GR Corolla for about 250 miles, as I said earlier, and it was a wide variety of driving scenarios. It was just as enjoyable in stop-and-go traffic as it was on curvy back roads, which I really loved. I think this car would make a great daily driver for an enthusiast, but I do think that there are a couple very, very small things that might not make it the best option for everybody. One of the biggest things would probably have to be how stiff the ride is. At lower speeds, like where you're driving around town, the dampening is a lot more aggressive. It is more comfortable at highway speeds. It's definitely a lot more cushioned feeling, but as I'm sure you could tell by how much my camera is shaking right now, I'm going 40 miles an hour, and the road is relatively smooth, and the ride is still quite bumpy. It's not harsh, but it's not smooth. So as you can see right now, I'm on a little bit rougher of a road surface, and the car is moving around a lot, which I know was a conscious decision by Toyota. I prefer a more aggressive ride whenever I'm on a track, which is ultimately what this car is built around. So I will say, however, the exhaust strikes a very good balance between sounding sporty and being quiet enough to drive. It's definitely a lot quieter than like the factory performance exhaust on like the Focus RS or something similar. Frankly, I wouldn't change the exhaust note at all. I love the tone of it. I think it's very suitable to the car, and it also kind of helps you fly under the radar a little bit more whenever you're driving around, because you don't have these insanely loud like burbles and revs and things like that. Now, from the very first time I started this car, I knew that I would absolutely love just listening to it as I was driving around. The little 3-cylinder powering this thing just begs to be heard. It's just kind of teasing you every single time you drive it to just give it a little bit more throttle so it can just open up a little bit more and let you hear that gorgeous exhaust note. I do wish the blow-off valve was louder. I can hardly hear it, and I know there's no functional reason for it to be louder, but I just love the little whistle of a turbo. And the turbo's pretty far back in the engine bay. It's like right up against the firewall on the passenger side. Despite being that close to the cabin, you can still hardly hear it. And whenever you do hear it, it sounds very polite. It's almost like a sneeze. Not like a bad sneeze, but it's like a... It's honestly kind of cute. A lot of people complain about the clutch on this car. I think it feels great. I think the entire drivetrain feels fantastic. Like the shift linkage feels very, direct and mechanical, but not so much you feel like you're just jamming metal on metal. I think the clutch feels amazing. The throw distance on the shifter is the perfect length in my opinion. It's long enough for you to feel very sure in your shifts, but it's short enough to where the shifts don't take a long time. This car also earned major brownie points for me because it is only available in a manual transmission. Toyota was not playing around whenever they were designing this powertrain. Every component of it is amazing. I've been daily driving manuals since I was a teenager, and I can confidently say that this is one of the best stock transmissions I have ever driven. The clutch pedal feel magnificent. Shifter, magnificent. Every part of it is just so good. I don't have that desire to throw on a short shift kit. I don't have that desire to lighten the flywheel. I don't have a clutch delay valve to delete because everybody loves putting those on cars now. It is just so good. So I miss driving that car. Driving the GR Corolla was a treat. It's the kind of car that leaves you wanting more, but in the sense of it leaves you wanting to drive it more. It just has this personality. It taunts you to take that corner a little bit harsher. It taunts you to brake a little bit later. It taunts you to follow that driving line a little bit more perfectly, even though you don't know if you can. I think driving the GR Corolla was a magical experience, and I think that it has kind of altered, in my opinion, what manufacturers can do whenever it comes to making something that is a truly accessible, approachable, track-ready from the dealer lot car. Now, I asked my audience on Instagram what they wanted to know about the GR Corolla, and one of the most common questions was, would it make a good daily? And I think it would make a great daily for most people. If you're not trying to lug around large items all the time, if you just use it for standard errands like grocery shopping, things like that, I think it would do just fine. I don't think it would easily fit a car seat in the back if you have kids, if you or your partner are kind of tall. If you're about my height, I'm 5'7", it would probably work, but if one of you guys is taller, that rear seat room kind of diminishes really quickly. I would also say if you have a little bit of a wider frame, to definitely go to a dealership and try to sit in one first to make sure the seats are comfortable. The bolstering is a little bit aggressive, and it was fine for me because I have a smaller frame, but I did kind of get the feeling that if you do have, broader shoulders, broader hips, it might get kind of claustrophobic. So definitely test it out beforehand and make sure you're comfortable within that seat before making the jump and buying one for a daily. I think with the combination of all the comfort technology like CarPlay, Adaptive Cruise, and the fun factor makes it a great daily for an enthusiast. I think this car would be a great weekend warrior, something that you drive back and forth to work during the week, run into errands, and then you go absolutely tear up a track day or an autocross on the weekends. I'm sitting here talking myself out of buying one because I enjoy driving it so much. I'm missing it now. That's all I have on the GR Corolla. If you guys have watched the entire video all the way through and you have more questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll try my best to answer them. And until next time, stay shifty.